Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. Today we have a special guest, retired Lieutenant Commander Joe Cardinelli, joining us. Nancy Guthrie, the investigation, Day 61. Reports are coming out from NewsNation and other sources. I saw Justin Lum talking about it. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos sent a homicide detective sergeant who's never investigated a homicide to Nancy Guthrie's case. That is compelling for the listening audience, for the public, for everyone worldwide who's watching this. But we had this discussion with the president of the Pima County Union, Deputies Union, Sergeant Aaron Cross, on February 27th, over a month ago. Aaron told you and I, Joe, as we were live about this. So to me, when I heard it, I was like, wait a minute, this really isn't breaking news. We knew about this. So I want to go to, obviously, Ed first, because Ed is on a break, on assignment, and Ed's joining us remotely from an undisclosed location. Ed, your thoughts on this breaking news? That's not really breaking news.
That's correct. It's not breaking news. You know, we knew about it, and it's just you know, another brick in the wall for this sheriff's leadership skills, that, you know, he would assign somebody like this to this high-profile investigation with no experience in homicide investigations. So I mean, if you don't have experiences, then you're never really truly going to know what the right things to do are and what the wrong things to do are. And, you know, the only way that you come good at conducting criminal investigations is experience. You can have all the book knowledge in the world. You can have all the training in the world. If you don't have experience in these areas, you have nothing.
Yeah. And retired Lieutenant Commander Joe Cardinelli, great friend, personal friend of mine. You have led, homicides, robbery squad, gang unit. You know better than anybody, if you don't have a commander-in-chief that's leading the charge and is backing everybody up and making the right decisions and putting, more importantly, the right people on the jobs. If you have a high-level, high-profile job, as we call it, case, you put your best guys on there. Your thoughts on that, Joe?
You absolutely do, which begs to ask the question, was this person put there just to satisfy the sheriff and have the communication that he needs from within the FBI? Or was he put there because of his competence? Obviously, if he never handled a homicide investigation, I'm sure there's another supervisor who has. So it leaves a lot to the imagination right now. And you're 100% right, and Ed's right as well. When you do these cases, you want to put your best foot forward. You want your best people on it. I want Ed there. I want you there. This way, in my absence, I know that the work will continue the way I want it done as a supervisor, and we get the results we need. But all I'm hearing from day one with the sheriff is how he totally disregarded the best people. Remember, we had the one person that was a good tracker and reassigned someplace else. Nobody knows where he is. He could have been there that day. So, you have the people, you're just not utilizing them. Why? That's the big question.
And Joe, that leads me to the next question is, if you are a commander-in-chief and you're the sheriff of Pima County, and you know that you did transfer your best homicide guy or your best homicide detectives or your supervisor or both, and you have a caper like this, it's the stroke of a pen. As a matter of fact, he probably could just pick up the phone and say, hey, you're working in robbery squad, or you're working answering the phone somewhere, as Aaron Cross is doing, answering phones. I talked to him just today, early this morning. You could just pick up the phone as the Pima County Sheriff and say, hey, you're now reassigned. You got this case. Put that best guy back in there. The guy's not going to say no, because that would be derelict of your duty. That would be not following an order of your sheriff. So if Sheriff Nanos had any smarts, he would have said, holy shiitake mushrooms, let me get my best guys here, and I'll put my other guys as backup for them that have no experience. And let's collect the doormat. Let's do a good forensic scrub. Let's make a crime scene that's wide and deep. Let's shut down the street that leads to Nancy Guthrie's, because we know that she was taken out of there and there had to have been a route. And they had news reporters camped out right across the street. And as a matter of fact, right on their property line in the early stages of this. So if they would have, and I'm going to go to Ed next, if they would have did the right thing as crime scene investigators or somebody with experience, that whole freaking street would have been closed down for at least 48 hours minimum. Your thoughts, Ed?
Yeah, well, I mean, from a forensic perspective, it would have been handled much differently. If I were there, you know, I would have demanded at least 2 teams, 1 team for the exterior of the property, 1 team for the interior, 3D laser scanned, sketched, photographed, top to bottom, drones up in the air, taking aerial photographs, surveying the area. Then, you know, there's no way I would have left that doormat by the front entrance, right next to the blood drops that are on the portico floor. I would have scooped that up. Plus, I don't know what's inside, and we still haven't truly established the point of entry. But you know, from things that are currently being reported, it appears that it might have been the back door into the location and exiting the front door with Miss Guthrie. So there would be a tremendous amount of work being done here. In addition, you know, there would be all types of forensic evidence searched for: hairs and fibers, blood, DNA, fingerprints, footwear impressions. I imagine the floor inside of that house probably is tiled. And I know that the suspect reached into the plant life over there, and so there could be transfer of all types of evidence.
Right. And if I know you, Ed, there may have been a situation inside that house that you would have ripped up carpeting, pieces of tile, pieces of laminate floor, anything that was
Bedding,
that you deemed to be impertinent and important for this investigation. You would have requested that to be removed or removed it yourself if you could.
Right. If I felt I couldn't process it properly in the field to get the best results, then I always have a saying with my students: when in doubt, cut it out and submit it to the lab. All right.
Yeah.
If you don't think you can handle that there in the field, if you don't have the skill sets, the equipment, or the training and experience to do it in the field, then submit it to the lab. I mean, I've cut out sections of concrete sidewalk. I've cut out sections of a housing authority concrete wall and submitted it to the lab.
Yeah. Here's Scotty Wagner, retired NYPD detective, Harlem, says I worked quite a few cases with Ed as a crime scene unit. So yeah, Scotty, good to see you, Scotty Wagner. Thank you for joining. Let's listen to this report. Ed, you got a couple more minutes, or do you got to go head back in?
Yeah, I got time.
Okay, here we go, guys.
Past the hour here, and the Pima County, Arizona sheriff is facing a recall hearing next week over his handling of the high-profile Nancy Guthrie case. The mother of Today's Show host Savannah Guthrie was last seen January 31st. And now, in a NewsNation exclusive, senior national correspondent Brian Enton just interviewed somebody close to that case who claims the first responders didn't know anything they were doing when they went to the Guthrie home.
The first investigators who responded to Nancy Guthrie's home were inexperienced, and the supervisor had never investigated a homicide before, we are told. This brand new information is coming from a source close to the investigation who sat down with me for an exclusive interview on NewsNation, giving new insight into the sheriff's department that's been forced into the national spotlight because of this case.
Hey, Joe, should I play the interview that we did on February 27th?
Yeah, because you can overlap them and show exactly. I mean, I find it comical. I mean, people just pay attention.
This is day 27. So, I mean, good. Look, good reporting. Brian's got information. Maybe he wasn't privy to that. Sergeant Cross, who he interviewed several times, had this information. I don't know if Cross gave it to him, but apparently not. Here's from our show. And Ed, you just let me know if your time is important to you. I know you're doing some secret squirrel stuff. So you just let me know if you got a boogie. We're good with that. Here we go. Ready, set. This is from February 27th. Our interview with our good friend, Pima County Deputy deputy's president of their union, Sergeant Aaron Cross. This is from the 27th.
Yeah, and the lack of mentorship goes a step even further. Not only are all the expertise and experienced detectives and deputies moved out of those units, but the sergeants were also impacted. He's moved out everyone. Every sergeant that had experience in the unit that they're overseeing was moved. We find ourselves in a very peculiar situation where our SWAT sergeant was never in SWAT, our K9 sergeant was never in K9, our traffic unit was never in traffic. I mean, I could go down the list. Homicide sergeant never worked homicide. There's so many.
So basically, he's saying that Sheriff Nanos removed all of the experienced supervisors and investigators out of their respective squads because of, as we have written down here, his big ego. He's spiteful. He's a micromanager. I even have a Napoleon complex, but I'm not going to say that. So a lot of things written down here, but we'll let the rest of this play. This was on February 27th, on day 27. Now we're on day 61, getting it as breaking news.
So many of these units are being run at the sergeant level by someone who just doesn't know the duties. They have to learn them while they're there. And they're placed in these positions. It's not their fault. They're ordered to go there.
And let's be very clear to our listening audience. This is not something that was created or happened since Nancy Guthrie went missing. This was a problem that has been, look, I'll run you guys through the rundown. Sheriff Chris Nanos, 40 years of service in the department. He started in 1984 as a corrections officer. His first stint was 2015 going into 2016. He was appointed by the Board of Supervisors to complete the term of retired Sheriff Clarence Dupnick. I hope I'm saying that right. Dupnick.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2016, he lost to Mark Napier, right? And then he had his second stint because he couldn't give up. He couldn't take that he got beat. And then on January 1st of 2021, he beat Napier in the 2020 election. So he took office January 1, 2021. So since 2020, basically 2021, he's been running the show. That's 6 years. Let me just run down really quick what happened in the whole county of Pima County, the whole county crime stats. 2016, 2020, we had 16 homicides. 2021, we had 14 homicides. 2022, 15 homicides. 2023, 11 homicides. This is the whole county. 2024, 13. 2025, 7. A total in 6 years of 76 homicides in Pima County. 0 in 2026. So 7 homicides in all of 2025. And those homicides all occurred in the first quarter. In my first year as a New York City police officer, we had 2,200 murders in 1 year in New York City. His burglary numbers, 2020, I'm not gonna break it down, but all in total for 6 years, there was 5,756 burglaries in Pima County. Do you think that Pima County has a problem with burglaries, with break-ins? I think so, and I don't see any plan in place. I looked for any type of publicly posted crime reduction plan, and if I missed it, Sergeant Cross, let me know. I didn't see it. And I did my little detective work and I did my homework, and it doesn't seem like this sheriff initiates any type of initiative to combat larcenies. Larcenies are through the roof. Larcenies are the largest crime in Pima County. Then you got homicides, which are 76 over 6 years. That's 76 too many, right? But you can never stop people from doing committing murder. It happens. But when you have home break-ins, the numbers that I just recited here, 5,756 homes in Pima County were burglarized that were reported. That means that some of the people are scared to report it because they're gang members or people that are bad that they're afraid to report it. So where's the initiative to try to stop this stuff? And of course, in the Catalina foothills, crime in 2023 was a big fat donut. There was nothing going on there. So that tells me that there's probably very few patrols going on around Nancy Guthrie's home, little, if not none. Hey guys, you notice how everything that I'm saying, Sergeant Cross is shaking his head and agreeing with? there's nothing that he said, oh no, you got that wrong. If you have burglaries running through the roof, don't you think, Joe, that you would take the recidivists and drag them in if they're out there and they're not locked up? And
of course we would. We would do that. And that's why on the last show, when you and Ed and I were speaking about it, I said about the quality of life crimes and on the, dusting the cars and everything for prints and everything, because I know since the influx of these illegal migrants, and they're right next to the border over there, they're very close to the border, there has to be something going on for the quality of life crimes, and all these burglaries and these larcenies all tie in together. And they don't have anything to go on because there's nothing for them to, to compare it to. Whereas had they done it from the beginning and had the initiative that you're speaking about, had the sheriff had this foresight to turn around and say, listen, I want to do this. Let's, get a handle on this now. But no, he's too comfortable with the fact like, hey, we only had 76 homicides in this county. I'm doing a great job.
Yeah. And we saw on the Ring video doorbell canvases, remember they plead to the public, hey, look at your rings, go back and look in these specific dates. And then we saw guys with backpacks going through people's property and going through on their property, looking in cars, looking to jump over brick walls. This is not something that's new to Pima County. They have a burglary problem. And this abduction of Nancy Guthrie, which ultimately, in my opinion, is going to turn into a homicide, started out with somebody breaching her property and breaching her home, whether the doors were left open, whether they talk about these propped open doors, there's sliding doors on the other side of the property. There's all different kinds of points of entry. Ed made a great point and talked about the garage door. When the garage door opened up, there was an opportunity there for someone that's laying in wait to slip on in, right? With that door open. And who knows what this son-in-law was doing? Did he walk her into the house? We don't know. None of this is, everybody's speculating about it, but we don't know if he walked his mother-in-law into the house. I know if it was me, I'm not saying this to Monday morning quarterback stuff, but if I went out day before yesterday out in Suffolk to put up more Ring cameras at my stepmom's. She's 83. I walk her in and out of the house. I make sure she gets in if I'm dropping her off. So who knows what happened? Only the detectives who interviewed him know what he did or know what he said he did. But there's opportunity to get inside the home. Ed, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, think about this. The video surveillance videos that we've seen aired by the news in this case showed several locations of suspicious characters at night, going around people's properties and looking at ways to get into the property. And in this case, we now know too that perp was wearing the same clothing, came a couple days earlier and was surveying the property here. And burglaries at night when people are inside the house are very, very dangerous. Okay. And this is a senior citizen community, this area here. So the odds are that these burglars are going to potentially be confronted by the occupants of these residences. So now, I remember when we first came out of the academy, people saying, oh, burglars don't carry guns. And that's just not true. That is not true at all. In fact, Detective Louis Miller from NSU 10 was killed, and Detective Mark Del Pino was shot when they responded to a burglary in progress in the 7-0 precinct. So these are quite dangerous people that are making entry, knowing the possibility is high that there are occupants in there. Okay, it's usually like burglaries, at least in my neck of the woods here in the Brooklyn, in the Flatbush area when I was on patrol. The burglaries were during the day when people were at work and the residences were unoccupied.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. They were less dangerous that way.
The thing of it is, Ed, is there's just so much speculation as it pertains to this case, and so many people are talking about it. Like, Brian, I hear Linda Lane put this comment up. Hey, DutyRon, where is it? Uh, shoot, I think it went away, but she was telling us that, oh, here it is. Hey, Ron, have you seen Brian's interview this morning? Had a guy blacked out. It's going to air tonight. Yeah, the guy that was blacked out said exactly what Sergeant Cross said to us on February 27th, that Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos sent a homicide sergeant with no experience. Aaron Cross messaged me this morning at 8 o'clock my time or 9 o'clock my time, and he said, "Hey, Ron, did you see the video that Brian Enton put out? We talked about this on the 27th of February. I told you this on your podcast." So I didn't even see it. I wasn't even aware of it, that interview had just come out. But this has been known to everybody within the department. And Sergeant Cross spoke very candidly about it with myself, Lieutenant Commander Joe Cardinelli, retired, on the night of February 22nd. That's day 27 in this investigation, Linda and chat. So what's breaking right now is, in my opinion, old news, but it's great to keep highlighting it. But I wanted to come live today to talk to you guys about, I asked Sergeant Cross this morning, and when we were texting back and forth, I said, "Is there anything going on?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm getting a lot more calls about barking dogs and hose leaks on neighbors' properties and noise complaints, but that's about it."
Hey, Ron, I got to jump out.
All right, Ed, thank you for being here. We'll see you soon, Ed. Be careful.
Good seeing you, Joe.
Same here, my friend. Talk to you soon.
There he goes, Ed Wallace. So, it brings me to this back. We'll circle back to this because I got a couple more things to play. But again, I go to you, Joe, because you're a lieutenant commander, retired. How important, and I keep going back and circling back to this, is how important is the leader who's leading the charge in a case like this?
If you don't have direction at the beginning, right through the case and to the very end of the case, and you don't give the directions that you expect as a squad commander, as a detective sergeant, all right, you're not doing anybody any favors by sugarcoating things and putting people in that don't fit into the mold. I mean, my good buddy, my classmate, Scotty Wagner, is listening to this right now, and I would have the confidence in Scotty or in you, or especially with Ed and the whole team together, because I know I'm going to get the job done. But if somebody came to me, you, Scott, or Ed, and said, "Why is so-and-so here? He or she has zero experience with this," I'm going to find something for that person to do other than get into the middle of this thing without just sitting back and teaching them from that point. But I would most certainly would not let them take the lead on it. No uncertain terms, I would not let them take the lead on that. And Ron, I just want to touch on something before you put this back to the screen. What Ed said and what you said a few moments ago was so crucial, because speculation is so much on this case. The back door finally came to light because Savannah put it out there. All right. That makes you think about that person coming to the front door and saying exactly what you said. Did they take her out through the front door because they couldn't take her out through the back for whatever reason? So they had to get her out. So they send this person goes to the front knowing that camera is active and has to disable it. All right, at that point, because if they disabled it beforehand, then that's a problem in itself. So these things combined with what time the garage closed tells me a lot. All right, tells me a lot that investigators do have things that they're not letting out, which is good. I like that. But it also quiets the speculation as to how did they get in now. If this is the way they came in, it explains what Ed was speaking about, removing somebody from through means of the front door.
Yeah, 100%, boss. This case, 61 days in, we're no closer to knowing what's going on. And look, we could argue that the public doesn't really have a right to know. But as a medium, I think Aaron referred to his department as a medium-sized department. As a medium-sized department, you have a public information officer. What harm does it do to especially, and I'm thinking about the residents of Pima County, and in particular, the Catalina foothills. There's residents that are elderly who are scared to death, Joe. And I keep bringing this up because we all have elderly family members. My stepmom's in her 80s. She lives alone. She gets frightened, and she would be frightened to death if there was a homicidal maniac or maniacs, plural, on the loose, unapprehended, right? And you're now not getting into any direction from your elected sheriff. His office is giving donuts out, and that is leading to false speculation. It's leading to people to make wild accusations and pointing fingers at people who are innocent, pointing fingers at maybe people who are not innocent, and nothing's happening. And there's no direction. There's no keeping the community informed. When you are locking hands with your community, that's community policing at its best. You need to let your people know who elected you, who pay their taxes, that you're doing something. We don't know.
You're right. You're right. I'll tell you why you're right, because you would hope that since the task force has been established and you have 5 of your people assigned there, regardless if he's qualified or not at this point and why he's there, but you have 5 people there that are working this case. You as a sheriff, and I do have a good friend of mine, Paul Arteta, who is the Orange County, New York sheriff, who is great for this job because he would be, and I know because you speak to people like this, he's out there, and then you would be sending your deputies out there door to door, reassuring them, listen, can we look at what you have here? Can we recommend this? Here is our number direct. Reassuring the public that you are behind them, that no matter what's going on nationally with this case, locally, we still care, and this is what we're doing. And you can make the recommendations for cameras, of getting more of an updated contact for relatives. You seize the opportunity to do 2 things. You put the community at ease, and you update your information for everybody in that area and what cameras they have, not just for now, but for future reference, that at this angle, you could go to this home and this is what they have.
Right. Well said, boss. And I wish that they had somebody with half of the competence that you have. You're extremely competent, and you know how to conduct these types of investigations. I feel extremely competent because of what? Repetitions, going and doing this over, and repetitiveness. I want to talk about day 20, February 20th, 2026. We reported a private helicopter doing a pattern search at a landfill that was where the garbage from the Catalina foothills goes. We never heard anything about that at all. As a matter of fact, the Pima County Sheriffs didn't even mention it. We were able to see it through flight radar. And a lot of times when you deal with some of these aircraft from law enforcement, sometimes they can mask the plane's identifier. So this came in February 20th, private helicopter doing a pattern grid search, and we showed it. It was very, very distinct, and that happened on day 20. Also, we had the Rio Rico resident search warrants on the vehicle after a traffic stop on February 10th into February 11th. And then Friday the 13th, we had that big FBI SWAT search warrant at the residence 2 miles from Nancy's home, where the Range Rover was taken into custody. No, what would it hurt them to give updates on these investigatory steps that we know about as civilians, the public? I want to go to the chat. Let us know where you're watching, city, state. And we have a lot of new subscribers, Joe. We're up to 670,000 subscribers. And I want to thank everybody for being here, because the live chat, that's the heartbeat of this community. And we love our live chatters and our replay viewers. So let us know where you're watching, and let us know, too, what you think happened to Nancy Guthrie. We're open to any and all suggestions, and we like to have this sort of like open forum, community chat, like a town hall meeting, so to speak. So we have people checking in from El Segundo, California, Ohio, Southern Illinois, the United Kingdom, Virginia is here, Central California. Hey, Sandy, good to see you. Langley, British Columbia. Hey, Nancy, good to see you. Hello from Buffalo. Joe, My sister went to Buffalo U. The snow that those guys get up there, man, you need a snowmobile to get around in the wintertime. Hey, St. Louis, thanks for kicking the Mets' ass in this series. Good to see you, Sheila. Thank you for joining. Hello from Vermont. Let's circle back to the doormat just for a second, Joe. You know, I asked Ed about this several times. I mean, we had many discussions about the doormat at Nancy Guthrie's home. And let me just say this. This is not science. This is the basics. If you took a basic crime scene or crime scene preservation, as they gave us in the police academy as cops, they tell you, make your crime scene big, take everything, collect as much as you can, or preserve as much as you can, and let the professionals take it. Why do you think they missed that, Matt, Joe? And why did they never take it? I think it's still there.
It's just incompetence. That's all it is. I mean, I saw your last viewer there putting something about the saliva, and it's here you have your viewers who are, you know, crime sleuths unto themselves, and that's a good question. Why didn't they take it? And you and I and Ed have beat this down so many times. I have said from the beginning, as I've said on so many shows, there is nothing wrong with securing that entire house, the surrounding area, and then narrowing it down as you need it, but leaving somebody there so you could go back in. But every time we looked at the camera crews from all the stations, there's the mat, there's the box that was delivered still to the side over there, and there's a pizza delivery guy delivering pizza while they have deputies on the scene. And to us, that doesn't make sense, and we criticize them for it because it should never be done under any circumstances, because your job is to secure that crime scene so it's not contaminated and that you could present a good case in court. So good luck trying to explain some of those things later on, unless you have the evidence that's going to nail people from within the house. That's going to be the key to this. But that map, by all means, should have been taken away. Should have been taken away right then and there. And that's,
you said it so well, and I'm glad you went right to where I was thinking. A defense attorney, if and when they collar these people, the perps, I'm saying perps plural because this was not a one-man job. And the guy at the front door, no, I'll still say he didn't appear like a professional, but guess what? That guy has eluded arrest for 60 days, Joe. So as much as a buffoon as he appeared with carrying that gun in the front and, you know, taking debris from up here in the front where my cursor is and pulling out the weeds and walking back up and in here, that mofo is making Pima County, and I have to say it, the FBI look like fools because they're not 61 days into this, at least to our knowledge. They could be close, but we don't know. But he has eluded authorities for 61 days, along with his accomplice, his co-conspirators. So if any time that this guy, circling back to what you said, boss, these guys get collared, or girls, or guys and girls get collared, a defense attorney's dream is this effed up crime scene, this effed up evidence collection, this effed up investigation. They will have a freaking field day with this, and we may see somebody that gets arrested get off on a technicality.
You're right. And here's something else, Ron. Let's look at what we've been speaking about. Hopefully they have the evidence, they have prints from the inside of the house that they can secure. But in all fairness to the FBI, they were brought into this after the fact, after the crime scene was contaminated, and they're working on what they could retrieve or what they can enhance from what was retrieved, like the videos. All right. And they're working really with a minimal amount of evidence that they would like. So they're doing the best that they can, and they're going back and they're doing their thing from FBI headquarters, which is great. But until we come across somebody that may have committed one of these larcenies or burglaries, and those prints match up to something like that to give you a substantial lead, all right, and they start looking at these quality of life crimes and these larcenies, burglaries, everything else, you're still going to be, like you said, he's going to be on the run. He or she or they are going to be on the run. Yep. And the more time that goes by, the more they get cockier. They might be doing something else again. but we don't know.
Right.
And to a degree, I'm glad we don't know, because I really wouldn't want anything else getting out there of what they have.
No, and I stopped it here and really took a quick look here. This gives us a great overview of the crime scene tape here. You see it goes out and around to this truck, but it doesn't really go further past here. You got a home here, you got a home back here, you got a home over here to the upper left. Again, and here's YouTubers, live streamers, media back here. You could see the boom lights and the cameras and the tripods set up. So this is a situation where we had Brian Enton, our good friend, and many others walk up this driveway with no police car here on day two. Day two, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Walk up this driveway either from this side or this side, it doesn't matter. And they were walked right up here, maybe touching the guard, the handrail going up, maybe brushing up against it, into this vestibule and taking videos and pictures of the blood and the debris there and the mat that still was there. I said it early on, and I think you agreed with me. What harm would it be to take a civilian or an auxiliary deputy? Doesn't even have to be a guy with a gun. Put one car here, right here, blocking this driveway, right at the curb, right at the street, with the turret lights on, and one here, right? And then you tell that person, the two people, every 20 minutes, one of you get out and walk this property or walk the perimeter around the wall and come back here. And now you have a secure crime scene. And now no one's going to jump this. Brian Enton yesterday went out with the permission of the property owner, walked around the back here and took video and pictures of the two doors. But I'm saying early on, this was a free-for-all. This is now not a crime scene anymore. They let it open day two, and then they got the scrutiny, and then they closed it again.
So let's take it back to the first day also, where they were saying, well, don't forget we were initially investigating a missing persons. When you go there, the minute you go there and you see those blood stains by the front door, that immediately gets locked down. You can always backtrack it later on and say, we did this. Nobody's going to ever fault you for securing a crime scene, a possible crime scene that turns out to be nothing. But now you had something that's turning out to be one of the biggest things going, and you didn't secure it. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't understand you. And you hit it on the head again with, they have a lot of volunteers that are vetted in that sheriff's department. All right, people I'm sure that they use for other things, for other searches. They could bring in that are competent, that who these people are. And
right.
You put them there and you tell them with the explicit instructions, nobody gets beyond this point unless I or we, three of us, say so. And right. You get names and everything. All right, get names of anybody who approaches you. But they didn't do that. So that being said, where we are today, we're still missing some of the key elements that would have been very helpful in the beginning of this investigation.
100%, Joe. 100%. Thank you for bringing that up. So one of our friends, Donna Clark, says, DutyRon, do you think the perps will ever be found? I hope that they will be. I cannot say yes or no, but I would hope that there's going to be one mistake, or I'll give you my synopsis of how this potentially could go down. Number one, it could be solved by a civilian, a person who knows because somebody said something at a party or was talking about it somewhere down the road and said, you know what, there's almost $1.3 million on the plate here. I'm going to come forward and I'm going to give up what I know. It could be solved by the public, right? But we have the FBI. I guess you never silenced that thing, Joe.
I did. It's something else. It's probably for the computer.
It's all good. It's all good. We'll talk afterwards. The bottom line here is civilians or someone from the public that knows something. Loose lips sink ships, right? Or we have the FBI and we have some of that digital forensic evidence. Don't forget, we didn't hear anything about all of the warrants that they did and all of the different things that they have available in their tool shed forensically that we're not privy to. They didn't get into talking about all of the different forensic steps, because the FBI, they don't talk. They do not speak unless they have a collar. Then they'll speak. That's when you'll hear from them. And here's the second part to that question is, why did Nanos run the media off? I'm not 100% sure that he ran the media off. He put up those barriers of saying that you can't park by the house, because probably he was getting complaints from the neighbors. Like, I know the neighbors enjoy the media and enjoy the company, but there's always those that don't, and that put in those complaints like, oh, they're making noise with the generator and this, that, and the other. Remember that ridiculous ordinance that they had with no lights? So they couldn't light up the area that first night looking with the whirlybird, with the fixed wing helicopters and aircraft, because they have this light ordinance that comes from the university. It was like, when I heard that, I was like, what in God's name? Are you kidding me? I'd light that place up like a Christmas tree, you know? So yeah, this whole situation, Pima County Sheriff's, the Catalina foothills, it's just troubling, to say the least, the way it was handled from the get-go. And as Ed always says, garbage in, garbage out. You can't fix something that you're already screwed up. So you can't go back here. That somebody in the chat said that mat is still there. Somebody in the chat said that Annie is at the house taking boxes out. Right now, that's fine. You could take this is wide open. They could do whatever they want there.
Yeah, but let's not forget, the family's cleared on this, The family is cleared. And the other part of that question is a good one. Why with the press? Well, because they've been very critical of him. And if you minimize the press, you minimize the questions that are being directed to you. So he's like, dancing around all this, because he knows he said things he shouldn't have said, like what we just mentioned about the family. Yeah. And he also knows that he's the one that's going to get the blame for everything that went wrong, because he is the head of the investigation. Correct. All right. And this is why he's minimizing his exposure to the press.
Yeah. So those are just two possibilities, that it's going to get solved with the forensics, not just the digital forensics, but also the forensic genetic genealogy, which takes a long time to process. And we have the president of MVAC. It's a microbe vacuum. And the MVAC company, they sell their product to a lot of the state labs. And in the Idaho 4 case, the Moscow murders, they used the MVAC. It was available to them at the Idaho State Crime Lab, and New York State Police have it. NYPD, we were trying to get it to them, but they don't have it yet. But they could go in and use an MVAC. But now that ship has sailed. And why they didn't use that is beyond me, because they could have went into that house and sucked up that MVAC machine that we highlighted on some of our older live streams. Has solved a 40-year-old murder case. By what? They took a rock that was used to split a young girl's head open at a riverbed 40 years ago, and they had it in evidence, Joe. They took that rock and they MVAC'd it, and they got a DNA profile and made a collar on it 40 years later. So
technology is great.
It was a cold case.
Technology being what it is, though, Ron, I tell you what you were saying a few moments ago about how the case could be solved and down the line and everything. Think about this. How did many of our cases with multiple perps, if there are multiple, which I agree with you, there had to be more than one involved with this to any degree, whether it's planning or whatever. But when you have a couple of people that are involved, hopefully there's more than two. All right. And somebody gets jammed up and they wind up going to jail, and they start thinking about it while they're sitting there for a couple of months or even a year. And they go, I have something I could trade off. Yeah, that happens. Or you run your mouth in jail saying that to prove what a big person you are. I know about this. I know about that. So cases get solved like that all the time. But technology will play a very big part in this as well, because maybe the minuscule amount of evidence that they got from inside, if that's what it turns out to be, may go into the system and pop sooner than later.
And Katina, thank you so much for the super chat. She says, criminals target vulnerability. Residents need to be educated everywhere about their vulnerability. We heard from residents at morning cups of coffee interviews on various different networks that they leave their doors open, or they leave the door open with the screen to get a breeze coming through early in the morning and late at night. But this burglary thing just sticks in my mind, boss. 5,756 burglaries over a 6-year span. And in 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025, there was 1,000 burglaries each year that were perpetrated. Why not get some of these recidivists who have been collared and take them in and throw them in the box and sit there and interview and interrogate these guys and girls and see what information they know. And who knows, maybe they did do that. But I don't have a lot of confidence in the sheriff to think that, yeah, they're doing what we would have done. If we were this was in New York City, you know how this would have gone. Hey, I want my warrant squad to go and pull out all of the violent cases in that general area in a 5-mile radius. I want all the warrants pulled, and I want these people, if they're out and not in prison, I want them brought in or visited their home, knock on their door, pound the pavement, knock on their door and interview these people. And we would have stacks in Fugitive where I worked. We'd have stacks of warrants. It would take us literally days to go out and complete these assignments. And Resnick, that was the chief at the time, would be like, hey, do I got an update on this? Do I have an update? Was everybody questioned? I don't see Sheriff Chris Nanos doing that.
No, and the other side of that is, once again, the prints. With all those burglaries, you're going to tell me you didn't lift any prints? And if they did lift them and they are taking the time to compare them in the system, then, and you're not getting hits, that's telling you even more so that you're dealing with unknown factors like illegal migrants here that have settled here and nobody knows anything about them. Because contrary to what was said on many news outlets, all right, yes, when you have control of a border and you do get the prints, that's one thing. When you let 10 to 12 million people across that border and you're not getting their prints, the only time you do get them is when a very serious crime or they do get them into custody, and now these prints go in and now they go through the system, and that's when you're going to see things start popping.
Right. Joe, there's a fan of yours in the chat, Rock Chalk 92. She says, yay, Handsome Joe is back.
Thank you.
Let's listen to this interview and then we'll take questions. Hashtag Joe, hashtag Ron, and then we'll wrap it up because we're just close to the hour mark. I don't like to go over an hour. And by the way, chat, I haven't done a video on this in 10 days. So we gave the Nancy Guthrie case a break as far as Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace goes. 10 days, I took a hiatus from speaking on this because I just kept seeing the same thing regurgitated over and over again. But today, Sergeant Aaron Cross really gave me the push to go live with you guys. And I hope you guys don't mind. We had to come back and discuss this because day 61, this poor 84-year-old woman, I just keep thinking of my own mom. And I think about my stepmom, my stepmom's the same age as Nancy. And when I went over there 2 days ago to put 2 floodlight cameras in the rear of her home because the ones that were there were stopped working, I installed those too. But I went out there during the day. I looked at her and I looked at her face. I thought of Nancy Guthrie, and like, would I want to leave my mom vulnerable like that? And she lives in this small little tiny house in the middle of the woods. And I even said to her, I said, do you want to come and stay with us? We'll sell this house. She's like, oh, hell no. She gave me the, oh, hell no. She said, I'm living right here until I die. And then you guys can do what you want with this house. But I went out there and put the floodlight cameras up for her because I wanted her to feel safe. And I want to be able to see them. So I have view of them too. So let's play this and then we'll take your questions.
Into the national spotlight because of this case. We've protected this person's identity for fear of retaliation for speaking out. From what you know, were the initial people who responded inexperienced?
The people that were there on the scene were not tenure homicide detectives. They didn't have a lot of experience in homicide at that point, to include the supervisor, who, from my understanding, never investigated homicide before being installed as the supervisor for the homicide unit.
So wait, so the supervisor who first responded to Nancy Guthrie's house had never investigated a homicide?
Correct.
How is that possible?
Well, so you have decisions made by people that will install friends and people that can do stuff for them, opposed to people that are there on their merit and can do the job correctly.
A lot of turmoil here in Pima County. We've reported on that over the last couple of months.
Right. So we know that's kind of old news because, again, our good friend, and Brian Enton is our good friend. He interviewed Sergeant Cross several times. And I don't know if Cross mentioned that to him, but apparently he didn't. But, he broke a couple of different things. Remember on that show we did, Joe, at the end, he said, "Oh, I want to break this on your program. The investigation is going to be down to 4 detectives and 1 sergeant from Pima County." And that was like, he said it was going to happen that was a Sunday night, and that happened on Monday. So that was February 27th when we learned that the sergeant who was assigned to homicide had 0 experience. And that was shocking to us to hear that.
Yeah, the only good thing about that is it gives the FBI more room to go in the direction they want to go, and just give them, listen, guys, if we were you, we'd be doing this. Maybe we should look into this. Right. Whereas a good seasoned investigator say, you know what, I really don't think so, and tell the FBI why you don't want to go that direction and tell them where you need their help. Whereas they're telling you this is what you should be doing, which is okay, because thank God there is somebody behind the scenes that can do that if that in fact is being done. But to have that much inexperience there, and within your department, you have 50% of those detectives that could do it because they did handle homicide investigations, you're not doing any of your friends favors by putting an unseasoned officer or supervisor at the head of one of the biggest investigation your county has ever seen. You're not doing anybody any favors, most certainly yourself.
Yeah, I'll second that, and you're 110% correct. It's a shame because the people who suffer the most from this is first and foremost the victim, right? Then the family, then the community, and then law enforcers who really do the job right. The men and women of Pima County Sheriff's Department, they suffer too, because now people look at them and say, you guys are incompetent. And that's who I really feel, obviously, first and foremost, the family is who I feel bad for. But I really feel tremendously bad for the hardworking Pima County deputies who want to do the right thing and that have experience. But because of this big ego and micromanager and Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, I hope they get successfully recall this guy, because if anybody ever deserved to be recalled, it's this guy. But
yeah, and hopefully they have an update on that pretty soon.
Yeah. So everybody has opinions. Opinions are like, what? Everyone's got one, right? The border is close, and I cannot disagree that we had a situation a few years ago where it was just wide open, and many border states, Texas included, New Mexico, Arizona, California, everybody that was along that southern border paid the price for it. Look at Lake and Riley. Look at some of the names that people never like to talk about, which we always talk about, and the unknowns, the people who become victims of crimes that never get reported on a national level. But Nanos, in my opinion, is somebody who should be ousted. He, for many different reasons, not just because of the way he handled this case, but the way he lied about his previous employment. So I didn't see any questions, but I'm going to look again real quick. #DutyRon, Joe. Thank you all for summer for becoming a new member. Becky, thank you for being a member for over 44 months. Hello to the DutyRon fam. Jeff, good to see you. Hello, Eileen. Hello, and thank you for the super chat. Save America says reward won't be taken. Illegal immigrants involved. See, I mean, I value everyone's opinion, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but this is what a lot of people are chatting about. Schmitty, thank you for the 5. Such incompetence. This case is so frustrating. The lack of info leads to speculation and wild speculation, and pointing the fingers at people that shouldn't have the fingers pointed. Deb Longo, thank you for the 5. DutyRon, the perp seems to know this home intimately. So the question, what did Nancy know, or who benefited from her abduction? What do you think? Joe, I mean, I'll let you take this, but before you do, there's always a motive for everything. These things, this is not a crime of chance. This guy didn't just stumble across Nancy Guthrie's home and say, let me take an ailing 84-year-old woman who has many issues, and mobility was one of them. This is a targeted thing. They went to that home with a purpose to do something. And the more than likely, in my opinion, it's for a financial benefit. Joe.
Absolutely. The financial end of this is, what we're looking for. You could have somebody that just happened upon it, but I don't think so, because that back door scenario, as well as the front door, tells us different. But what could this woman possibly have on the inside of that house that they want? So maybe she did have cash around someplace. Maybe she had valuables. They're not going to tell us if any valuables are missing, because I wouldn't. I would wait to see where these valuables possibly turn up, pawn shops, whatever. So that's one aspect of it. But to have that knowledge of that front doorbell, and to have the knowledge of the backyard with this, and where you could be seen and where you won't be seen, that's somebody who planned this. And somebody probably planned it with the help of somebody else who also had intimate knowledge of this house. But once again, what would the gain be?
Right.
It would have to be something worth the risk of going in there. I don't think they thought that she would be maybe combative, or maybe she had, God forbid, a heart attack at the time. You don't know, but you have to speculate, and you have to think like an investigator and prepare for any scenario. Hopefully they have the evidence that's telling them what they need to know. They just have to get the direction of where to go with it based on, like I said, the evidence or the lack of.
Yeah. Agreed, boss. Thank you for that. So I saw a couple other comments in the chat that we already covered and we talked about. But look, I, along with everybody here, wants closure in this case. We want this case to come to an end. And, for Nancy and her family, her daughters, her son, Cameron, and Annie, and Savannah, I can't. When I said, when I saw my stepmom 2 days ago, I just looked at her and I said, what if this was her? How would I be feeling, and how would I be taking this? And it is heart-wrenching to think that your elderly parent can just disappear in the middle of the night by some mask-wielding thug with a gun strapped in the front of his crotch. And Savannah said it real well. She's like, I cannot imagine the fear that my mother had to deal with and endure at the hands of this guy. And seeing somebody who abducted your own family, your mother, on video is somebody's worst nightmare. It's like something that you never ever. And I had a couple of our subscribers and friends say, Ron, I'm having nightmares over this. So some people are really like, because everybody has different living dynamics, but a lot of people live alone. And
there's something else too. We discussed this, and we have to continue this discussion, not only in this case, but other cases. The healthcare industry has to step up their game. When you start bringing people into other, to parents' homes, grandmothers' homes, whatever, all right, and you start bringing them in to be caretakers, you have to know who you're bringing into these homes. Yeah. So if they don't do that, if they don't vet these people more, closer than what they are right now, and get fingerprints and do fingerprint identification, or I get a voice analysis of them as well. Nobody that wants to help somebody is going to object to that unless you have something to hide, and that should be a red flag right as soon as you hire, are attempting to hire somebody like that. But the ACLU and everybody else with these liberties and these, what's fair and what's not fair. Hey, when it comes to my family, I don't care what you think is fair or not fair. I want the best people there. And if you have to get somebody that's new and everything, at least know who they are, because the turnover rate for the healthcare industry in this area is tremendous. You'll have 5 people in there in a week, sometimes 10 in a month, 20 in a half a year's time, going in and out of the house. So you really have to keep tabs on this.
Joe, you said it well. I went through it with my mom, and really 100%, we got to look out for our vulnerable, and our family comes first. So this is going to be the last time I play it, but I have to play it one more time because I want everyone to hear. This is from February 27th with Sergeant Aaron Cross. One last time for the people in the back, because a lot of people come in later on. This guy, as soon as he was getting all of the ridicule and people were obviously he was watching and listening to all the posts that were online, he's the kind of guy that just shuts down. And I think you alluded to that, Sergeant.
Yeah, and the lack of mentorship goes a step even further. Not only are all the expertise and experienced detectives and deputies moved out of those units, but the sergeants were also impacted. He's moved out everyone. Every sergeant that had experience in the unit that they're overseeing was moved. We find ourselves in a very peculiar situation where our SWAT sergeant was never in SWAT, our canine sergeant was never in canine, our traffic unit was never in traffic. I mean, I could go down the list. Homicide sergeant never worked homicide.
There it is. So he made that statement while we were live with him, Joe, and we didn't even realize how this would come full circle a whole 30 days later as a breaking news story. And you know what? I don't prep the guests. Like, in other words, I didn't talk to Aaron beforehand and say, hey, this is what we're going to be discussing. I just basically said, when are you available? We want to have a talk. And I asked him, you heard me say it, Joe, is there anything you don't want to talk about that we can't, where we can't go? And what did he say? He said, no. Yeah. Yeah, I have you muted. I'm sorry. They didn't hear yet. So what did he
said?
say?
He would not get into the specifics of the case, but as it relates to his membership and how it affects him, that's what he was willing to say.
He said 100% talk about whatever you want. There's nothing off the table. And that's what I like about Sergeant Cross, is that he's like an open book. You know, if you ask him something about his department, he's going to tell you. But as it pertains to the case, they're not even letting him get anywhere near the case. And what I found interesting is that he said, and I pressed him on this twice, I said to Aaron, you mean to tell me that nobody in your department talks? Because, Joe, you remember, we work for the largest police department in the world, right? Or in the United States. There was always talk about cases, especially high-profile ones. And I found that surprising that nobody talked about the case.
And remember what he was saying? A lot of people are so afraid to say anything because of the grip that this sheriff has, and if you just screw up one little time, there's no room for error in the sheriff's eyes, and he moves you not only away from that one particular case, but away from the people you work with all the time, as an example. And you know, it's coming to to light now of how this department is run and who pays the price for it.
Yeah,
Sergeant Cross and his membership and the people of Pima County, because they're missing out on a great sergeant there who loves to do his job and should be back in there. He should be spearheading this thing of going door to door and speaking to people, saying, listen, this is what we want to just analyze for you. Do what you got to do, because public perception is everything right now. And
they're really missing out on a good resource as we pertain and talk about Sergeant Cross. I want to just close up by saying our live chatters, our community members, the members who join as memberships, the Patreon, the Buy Me Cups of Coffee, the people who send us comments down below in the comment section. Joe, our replay viewers are so on to this case and every case that we cover. We value the replay viewers. So if you're a replay viewer, let us know that you're part of the replay crew, and we will love to acknowledge that. And all of the messages that you send to Joe and for some of the special guests that we have, I forward them to them. So Joe knows sometimes I'm bothering him. Hey, this person sent a comment for you, Joe, or this one did this, or this one sent something in on the website. So I want to just say thank you to all of you who watch us, because I know you can get your true crime fix anywhere. There's so many people who talk about this, but we come to you from the police, detectives, and investigators perspective. And as Joe is here with us, he is a retired lieutenant commander. He commanded some very busy squads, the gang units and all of the things that he did in his career. And I value his input tremendously, because we're passing that along to all of you guys. So thank you for that. And I want to also say thank you to Ed for his all of his knowledge and experience that he gives us on these live streams. They are also invaluable. And some people don't realize how important it is to get something from a person's perspective who actually can walk the walk and talk the talk, somebody who's done the job. So that's what you get here on Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. On behalf of Joe, myself, and this entire community, we want to send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to the Guthrie family, to the folks who reside as well in the Catalina foothills and all of the folks in Arizona, in Pima County. We feel for you because you got a buffoon running the Pima County Sheriff's Department, and that being Chris Anos. I also want to send strength to the investigators, the FBI, and all folks who are taxed with doing these investigations, answering the phones, the tip line people, the people who are on standby. So thank you. Joe, final thoughts, and we'll close it up.
Well, you said it all. All power to the men and women of the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Stay to fight. You're doing great down there, regardless of what people may think. We know the real deal because of Sergeant Aaron Cross. And I think, Ron, the next time Ed's on and everything, we really have to make him cringe. I'm just going to have a Solo cup in one hand, and then somewhere through the broadcast, I'm going to have a pizza box go across the screen so we could just see him do the jitters a little bit.
If you really want to see him, get the jitters, add a leaf blower into that.
Yes, that's right.
That'll be the trifecta.
Do it.
Yeah. Ed will say something like this.
Pardon my French, but you're an asshole.
Thank you, Cameron. And thank you guys all for watching the replay, and the moderators. Our mod squad really do a lot of hard work, and they're volunteers, Joe. So the moderators help to keep things healthy in the chat. And if anybody gets out of line, they're there to take care of business. Thank you, Tina Gaines, for being here. Kristen White, Underclad. You guys are all great. Summer Girl, thank you for being here. Justice for Nancy and Sergeant Cross. Thank you all for being here. Here's one for you, Joe. Lieutenant Joe is a hell of a guy. And guess what? Joe, on a moment's notice, came out to Amityville and helped Ed and myself and a couple other people of Ed's family move furniture in a wet, cold winter night. So thank you, Joe. And it was great. I have a picture. I'll post it up on the members only chat. And also I met with the conservative felon yesterday. He came here to my house and I set up his laptop, and he now offers channel membership. So conservative felon Joe Fish came over to my house, and he lives local here, and I met him in Long Beach, and he came and hung out with me for about an hour yesterday. Great to see everybody. Thank you for joining. Stand by for a message from the cop team. Joe, don't go anywhere. I got to talk to you.
You got it.
Peace and love, guys. We'll see you on the next one.